Hi, in this video, I'm doing something a little different. Instead of reviewing some short stories or showing you a bunch of books, I thought I'd go through some of my favorite quotes. I'm such a book nerd that over the years, I've collected favorite quotes that hit me just right or said something about the universe that we all live in. Today, I'm going to go over a few of those. The first quote comes from a story called Ashes and Tombstones by Brian Stableford. The quote is this: Math has no morality. It does not care what it counts or what it proves. In the story, the character having this thought points out that math is a versatile art that can be applied to many different purposes. This is borne out in everyday life and ranges from calculating the cost of a pound of apples at the grocery store to determining the number of non-nuclear missiles it would take to destroy a city. Everything mankind has built was done using math. To me, the quote basically says that numbers don't lie because, unlike humans, they don't have an agenda. That doesn't negate the fact that questions and statistics can be manipulated to confirm the data collector's biases. However, 2 plus 2 will always equal 4 unless you're living in the novel 1984 or you're one of those math or computer geniuses that has some way to show it is slightly less or slightly more than 4. Even if you can prove it, the math won't care because it is certain the answer is 4. The next two quotes are from a novel called Only Forward by Michael Marshall Smith. The first quote is, "Everybody needs to be a hero in their own life." You've probably heard this before, and it's true. Everybody needs to feel good about what's going on with their life. This isn't to say that bad things won't happen because we all know they can and will. But a hero is someone that overcomes the bad things and pushes through the rough stuff. Everybody needs to be their own hero. Otherwise, they're relying on everyone else to handle their crap, and they aren't living life. The second quote from Only Forward is this: "Everything you've done, everything you've seen, everything you become remains. You never can go back, only forward. And if you don't bring the whole of yourself with you, you'll never see the sun again." I think this is a meditation on letting the past go, yet being aware that the past experiences you've had made you you, and they've got to be carried forward. They have to inform future actions so you can live your best life. That is, to see the sun again when dark places creep in. In bookish terms, the experience itself is like a book that you had and carried around. Once you're done with the book, you have the knowledge of the story in your head and you don't need to carry the weight around anymore. It's not a perfect analogy since you can read a book again. However, you can never read it again for the first time unless you wait a really long time and have forgotten everything in it. Hopefully that doesn't happen with your experiences and your memories. The next few quotes I'll go over in this video are from one of Terry Brooks's Shannara novels called The First King of Shannara. The first one is, "We are creatures who constantly reinvent ourselves and our lives in order to survive the mistakes we have made and the failings we have exposed." This quote goes nicely with the Only Forward quote I just talked about. People are constantly reinventing themselves because they're constantly making mistakes as they learn and grow. I've gone from being a good student in high school to being unsure about my direction in life to being an Air Force member with a career that was followed by one in the civil service. That's four different inventions right there. Now I'm working in a company that has nothing to do with national defense, and I live in a completely different country. I've made mistakes along the way, a lot of good choices and bad choices, career choices, money choices, conversation choices, the list goes on. The point is that I've been reinvented each time I made such mistakes because I've become a slightly different version of myself by learning from those mistakes. The next two quotes from First King of Shannara are somewhat related to each other. The first is a statement about the nature of faith, even though it doesn't specifically say the word faith. And it is, "Belief is best when uncomplicated by reason." I believe it's true that reason complicates anyone's ability to maintain belief in something despite evidence or logic showing the contrary. The obvious example that many would point to is probably religion, but I'll leave that argument to the atheist and Christian debaters. Here's a different example. Many people will stay in a job because they've been there a long time and are faithful that they'll be the next one promoted, even though they've been passed over many times. A reasoned view of the situation might show that they're never getting promoted because their boss doesn't like them, or they're the only one that is great at the position they currently fill and they don't want to try to train somebody new at it. Or less experienced and accomplished people are just getting promoted because the company prefers promoting younger staff for some reason. Belief may be what keeps this person trapped in the job they're in. If they changed what they believe in, i.e., their belief in their ability to do well if they leave the job, they might become happier. The next one could also be paired with the math has no morality quote from earlier. And it is, truth comes with recognition that it is universal and all encompassing and plays no favorites. If you cannot accept it into your own life, you cannot force it into the lives of others. Like math, the truth doesn't care about your feelings. The truth is irrefutable to anyone that's living in an objective reality. Mental gymnastics and verbal twists don't change facts, no matter what parents, friends, teachers, bosses, politicians, and priests may tell you. Until you learn to ignore the outside influences and weigh the information on its own merits, you may be lost in lies. Anyone armed with truth or the ability to ferret it out won't fall prey to those that would lie to them. So do yourself a favor and take this to heart. Learn to determine what is true and accept it into your life. Next up are a couple quotes from a romance book I read years ago called Living Single by Holly Chamberlain. First one is, once you let your heart have a say, perception and discrimination get all screwed up. Here we have another way of saying that logic gets to the truth, but this quote comes at it from the opposite direction. Your heart often overrides the voices coming from your head. If your heart thinks the guy or the girl is what you want, despite obvious red flags and probably friends and family telling you it isn't a good choice, the heart puts up soundproof walls to cut out the perception and discrimination your head wants to impose on your decision. A friend of mine experienced this with her first marriage. Everyone in her family told her it was a bad idea, but her heart wanted it anyway. Granted, she was 19 at the time, so life and experience had something to do with it. She understands what a mistake it was now after dealing with her ex-husband and his attempted and sometimes successful manipulations of her and her daughter for nearly 20 years. Your heart can make bad choices for you if you don't learn to give your head equal weight in the argument. The next bit is a slice of dialogue from the same book. First part is, they say sometimes ignorance is bliss, and the response is, they also say that having your head up your butt means you're a big sack of stupid. This plays with a very old saying and points out what the previous quote pointed out, mainly that if your head is lodged in a place where the sun doesn't shine, you're likely to make some really dumb decisions. You really need to take a step back in these situations and weigh what you know. If you need more info, try to get it so you aren't making ignorant decisions. So for this next quote, I gotta say, I have zero recollection of ever reading The Ganymede Club by Charles Sheffield, but I somehow have this quote in my notes. In dealing with the opposite sex, I believe it necessary to bear in mind the old question, are they less logical than they seem, or do they seem less logical than they are? I'm guessing a male character is having this thought. I'm not sure. I probably wrote it down because I thought the phrasing was interesting. I think most adults have had to deal with crazy family member, teacher, friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, coworker, or boss at some point. The number of Karen videos on the internet kind of proves this. Looking at that quote now reminds me of the only scene I liked in the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson. He plays a best-selling author, and when a fan asks him how he writes women so well, he responds by saying, "First I think of a man, then I take away reason and accountability." It's sexist as hell, but it always strikes me as funny when he says it in the movie. Unlike the Nicholson line, the Sheffield quote says that even though their words, actions, or demands may seem completely illogical, there might actually be some internal logic that we're not privy to happening in their minds. The next thing I have in my notes is from Dan Simmons's Carrion, which is a doorstop of a book about psychic vampires using mind control on people. And the quote is, "Stupidity has a price and it always gets paid." I think I wrote this one down because I really like the simplicity of it. 9 words that can probably describe someone you know or have known in the past. My best friend in high school was a good example of this. His hot-headed reactions to everything his stepmother ever did always got him in trouble with his dad. Inexperience also has a price, but inexperience can be diminished by living life and learning from mistakes. Stupidity, on the other hand, usually provides the same results for the same actions in the same situations time and time again. Just look at any reality police show. Criminals are often really stupid to the point where they repeatedly make the same mistakes and get caught doing the same thing in the same way over and over. The prison sentence is the price of stupidity for the criminals. Charles Dellent is a fantastic Canadian author with many novels and short stories out there. The next quote came from one of his older books called Jack of Kinrowan. I read an omnibus that contained Jack of Kinrowan and Drink Down the Moon, so this quote might be from either one of those books. I'm not sure which. Understanding is like wisdom, not easily acquired, but the endeavor is nevertheless worthwhile. I'm in my 50s, and anyone my age knows wisdom is one of the last tools you acquire in life. If you're lucky, you had a really good patient teacher early on and a mind willing to assimilate what they gave you. Wisdom is a major key for avoiding bad people and situations. It's a survival mechanism, whether you're talking about personal relationships, your job, or your finances. It is true that a good deep understanding of something is usually tough to grasp until you've studied it a while. It often requires multiple information sources and different angles or viewpoints on the subject. However, once you've gained a little more understanding of anything, you feel a sense of accomplishment, possibly a sense of wonder at how cool the thing you just learned is. You don't even have to know everything about the subject. Just a 1% increase is significant in many cases, in many subjects. As the quote says, the endeavor is worth it. So that's pretty much it for this one. If you have any quotes you think other viewers might like, please share them in the comments along with the source. Quotes don't have to come from fiction either, so, post stuff from other sources too if you want. Until next time, enjoy your reading.